What's going on, everybody? It is your man, Cleveland Terry, and today, finally, we are going to review the Rane 1 by Rane DJ. Is this the best DJ controller on the market today? Let's talk about it. Now, normally when I review a product, specifically a controller, I like to take it out on the road. I like to put it through its paces outside, not in a controlled environment. Well, of course, pandemic, we don't have those options. So unfortunately, I can't tell you if by moving it around in multiple places that the knocks and the bumps and things like that won't cause any issues with the controller. I'm going to assume that it's going to be just fine. One of the things right off the bat when you touch this controller, you realize is that it is a beefy controller. It's heavier than any other controller I've ever used, and that's because the entire chassis is all metal. It's an all metal construction. Now, whether or not it's more durable than some other things, I don't know. But I do know that it feels weighty. It feels about the weight of like a little more than a standard Rane 12 deck. Not that it's super heavy, but when you're comparing it to some of the more traditional controllers out there, it definitely feels heavy. Now, it's definitely manageable, and that's all relative, because if you're coming from a full 12 and Rane 70 or 72 setup, this is gonna feel like nothing to you. But say you're coming from like an SB3 or Newmark Platinum or something like that, this is going to feel weighty. It's not like carrying around a coffin like we did back in the olden days. So what do I think about this controller? Well, obviously, like I always do with all of my reviews, I'm gonna talk about the good and the bad. The good news is that it's mostly all good. This is considered to be a true mobile device. Now, when I say that, it's because it has things in it that professionals like me who do mobile-centric gigs are going to appreciate. If you look on the back side of it, it has all your normal connections that you'd see. You have two microphone inputs, both combo jacks, with one, the secondary mic, also doubling as your auxiliary input. It has your main outputs as XLR with the RCA outputs, but it also has two XLRs for the booth. Now, this is something that you don't see too much of. We saw it on the Denon Prime 4, and that was very important to me. I really appreciated it. There are two independent mic controls, two standalone mics. That's important too. What's good about this one is that both microphones actually have two band EQs on them. And I say that because it's one of the frustrating things I've had with both the Rane 70 and the Rane 72. So I asked Rane about this, and I said, how come this particular unit has dual band EQs and then the mixers don't? Well, it's because we consider this to be a device used by professionals, and professionals are going to need the ability to adjust on the fly. The one thing I don't love is the kind of recessed on and off switch. It's too hard to get to turn off and on. Obviously, there is no echo on the microphone, and this does not have a talk over function. Now, back to the aux. Now, because the microphone 1 and microphone 2, specifically microphone 2, can switch over to your aux input, that allows you to adjust the EQ on that channel. That's great. Most auxes that go in, it's a straight line in, and that's all you get. On the backside, we also have the ability to run turntables and or 12s into the unit. There's a switchable line in, and the phono preamps are okay. Vinyl volume, Serato volume. So, like I said before, it's definitely doable, but the volume is considerably lower on the phono preamp side versus it doesn't sound bad. First thing I'm gonna say is it doesn't sound bad. It's just a little low, and there's no way to adjust the internal gain of the phono preamp. As far as using the 12s with the Rane 1, very easy to do. I just switched over to DVS mode on the MK2 version of the 12s, and I switched from internal to relative mode. All your Q buttons still work. It's just that this doesn't work anymore. If you hit the start button, nothing's going to happen. You can still do your instant doubles and scratch bank. And when you're ready to move back to your Rane 1, it's as simple as turning Serato to internal mode. And we're now on here. This no longer works. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the crossfader contour because I did have a little bit of an issue with that. For whatever reason, anytime I was doing super heavy scratching, over time I'd watch the contour go from super sharp to kind of moving up a little bit. And it was only when I was doing like serious scratching, and it did take a little time to get to that point. For most people, it won't be a big deal, but obviously there's some sort of a vibration that's moving this knob a little bit upwards. Not a big deal, but it is what it is. Okay, speaking of faders, let's talk a little bit about the fader real quick. Now, this is the Mag 4 crossfader, and it's a great fader. I don't know why they felt the need to put the XF on, but one of the questions right out of the box is it tension adjustable? And the answer is yes, but it takes a little more work. Unlike your Rane 70 or your 72, where you have the knob right on the front of the panel, you don't have that here. So you're gonna have to deal with taking off the panel and then making the adjustments internally. As far as the faders are concerned, these are definitely not Mag 4 faders. They have a pretty heavy resistance to them, so I'm not sure you'll be doing a lot of up fader scratching. Now, let's talk a little bit about the mixer panel because I know that's a big deal for a lot of people. And I will tell you right off the bat, it takes a minute to get used to because it is very small. Now, that doesn't mean that the fader's small or anything like that. It just means that visually speaking, it feels small when you're using it at first. Like you have to almost compress. Normal deck faders where you have the fader here and maybe jog or the platter is over here, everything feels very close. Once you get used to it, not a big deal. I do love the paddles. Paddles are great. They feel just like the paddles in the 70 and 72. So everything is straightforward all the way down the path here, going from your gain volume all the way down to your low pass, high pass filter. Love the layout of this. What I don't love is the fact that there are no dedicated effects on the box. At this price point, I feel like there should have been dedicated effects on here. And one of the things that I am sorely missing on this controller is the lack of a beat display. Not a BPM display, but an actual effects beat display. So here's my issue. I find myself having to look at my computer a lot more than I did before, specifically because of the effects panel. You see, you can adjust the depth and the beat parameters of the effects from Serato, but you have no idea where you are on the beats panel parameters. That means I have to not only turn on my effects, but I have to have them displayed in the Serato app so I know exactly where I am. That's a little bit of an issue for me. Also, because it's not a dedicated system, each effect is going to share the exact same beat parameter. And now some effects you might want to sit at half a beat, while some others you might want to sit at 1 beat. You don't have that option. So every time you have to switch, you have to look over, you gotta change it out to get it to where you need to be. Is that a big deal for most people? Maybe, maybe not. I know that's a personal choice. Speaking of personal choice, this unit does not have silent Q. It has split Q, so plus for that, but no silent Q. Now, we know that the platters are the main reason that you're gonna wanna purchase this device. They are great platters. Now, if you saw my review about the 12s, you'll know that I thought they were great. They were a little light compared to normal turntables, and if you did like a spin back, it would take you past the 12 o'clock of wherever you were doing your juggle from. These are just the same. In fact, they are lighter than the 12s are, and that took a minute to get used to also. I will tell you this, the slip mats, for whatever reason, feel a lot better. These Rane slip mats feel a lot better than they did on the 12s. One other thing I want to mention, a lot of people have been asking, how do I get a vinyl record on here to replace the acrylic? By the way, the acrylic doesn't feel as bad on here. Don't ask me why. But if you want to replace the acrylic, there are 3 screws on here, 1, 2, and 3. Remove the screws, take off the plate, take another record, mark out the positions, drill those 3 holes into it, and now you have any record you want to use will control this. So just a little tip for you. They are ultra responsive, and of course you still have your standard high torque or low torque available to you. We have our traditional instant doubles and your file viewer here, and then your adjustable stop time, which is actually a really, really nice feature to have on here. You can adjust it. You have a dedicated slip button and a motor off. This is important here because what that means is you can still continue to play music, and then you can turn the motor off. And now this will be treated just like a CDJ style thing, where you can speed it up by hitting the sides, slow it down. You can obviously work up here too. And then when you're ready to, you can just turn them right back on. Now, one of the things you cannot do, you can't scratch while you are in motor off mode. It doesn't work. You can scratch in slip mode. Now, one thing that I found odd when first using these, when first turning these things on, was the amount of noise that comes from the actual controller itself. I thought it was a little odd, so I actually pulled up the 12s and set them side by side, and the 12s don't exhibit this. So when you hit the start button and the platters start to move, this is what you get. Now, this definitely triggered my senses a little bit. Obviously, if you are outside at an event and you're playing with people and you got lights and moving heads and gobos, they all have sound. They all push out sound. It's never been an issue. I've just never had a controller that had a persistent noise. Pads feel very good. You got your hot cue, your save loop, your roll, your sample, your slicer, and also you have your scratch banks. So for a lot of people that are using the 70 and 72, this is gonna be a nice transition to be able to use the same things that you use all the time. And then you have your loop, just like the 70, which will give you your 4-beat loop, and then your adjustable ins and outs. And it has a dedicated pitch bend button. Now, I don't use the pitch bend button, but it's definitely a cool feature to have, especially if you're DJing motor off, but it can be used in motor off and motor on mode. So that's a great little feature right there. As far as the pitch fader is concerned, it has excellent travel, great resolution, and the 0-click. And then you have your searchable touchpad with visuals that show you exactly where you are in the song, which is a great feature. I also like that they continue to put 12 and 2 on the decks. Makes for a very easy visual cue. I appreciate that. Last but not least, people want to know how big it is, how it compares to some of the more popular controllers like the DDJ 1000. Well, it just so happens that I have one here. So we're gonna go ahead and just do a measurement here. The Rane 1 is 26.5 by 12.5, and it comes up about 3.5. Pioneer DDJ 1000 is 28, almost 28 inches, so it's almost 1.5 inches longer. 14 inches, so it's another 1.5 inches longer, and it is a little more shallow. So I believe that sits at about 2 inches. This is a fun device, and I think price-wise at $14.99, a lot of people are gonna say that it might be a little expensive, but I think the technology of this device is where it's at. One other thing that people continue to bring up is the fact that it's only a 2-deck, and they keep saying, well, once there's a 4-deck, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think any more than 2 decks are necessary. I think a lot of people want 4 decks because they're used to the mic having its own channel, they're used to the auxiliary having its own channel, and then you have the 2 remaining decks for your actual mixing. Most people aren't doing 3 and 4 deck mixing. Not really a thing. If you're that person, great, more power to you. But I'm gonna say you are more the anomaly than the rule. Now, the fact that there is a dedicated auxiliary port, there are dedicated EQs on here, there is a dedicated mic, you don't need to have 4 channels. Also, for the people that are comparing it to the NS7, okay, but you're also not having to lug around a huge box with you everywhere you go. This is compact. This is something that is easily transportable. I know people are gonna say their NS7 is transportable. More power to you. It's too big for me, but this is a great, great size deck. I think a lot of people are going to buy this deck, and I think a lot of people are gonna enjoy this deck fully. If you are coming from a controller and you're maybe looking to move up into, 12s and a mixer, but you don't necessarily want to get a full size setup, well, this is a no-brainer. You get two 12s and a Rane 70 without the onboard effects for $1,500. In my book, that's a pretty good deal. And I think you're going to love this actual controller. Now, for the main question, is this one of the best controllers out there? Yes. Is there some things that I would love to see on a future product? Of course. But right now, today, there is nothing like this controller on the market. With all the features it has, with Scratch Bank, which is so necessary in today's DJ world. Once you start using Scratch Bank, you never want to leave it. I think a lot of people who question the cost of it, once they start using it, realize just how fun it is to use. All right, guys, if you found what I said useful, hit that like button. If you found what I said really useful, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow me on the Instagrams and the Twitters. Get on my Discord. Links are in the description below. Guys, girls, it is always a pleasure. If I don't talk to you later, we'll talk soon. Peace.